I don't know why I started, guys. I just made a stream which was about how to change your beliefs, and this one goes more in depth on the practices that you need to actually change your beliefs. So let me actually drink some water, and we're gonna like rip through this book. Mm. Okay, so as some of you guys might know, for me, one is a little bit too slow. Okay, we're gonna like do 2x this, so it's like 2 hours 43 minutes. So it's like a 3 hours book. Uh, okay, okay. If I do I can do it at 2.2x. I understand most people wouldn't understand, but the goal of this video isn't for you to understand much. It's just for let's I don't know, read together. What am I saying? We'll read together. I will summarize what the book is trying to say maybe in the end. Let me like zoom out a bit. There you go. Okay. Okay. Go. Guys, ready?
And so forth. When you go into this theater in your mind and the padded doors whoosh close behind you, the entire world should be locked out. This is your private screening room, just like some Hollywood big shots have in their homes. As you sink into the seat and stretch out your legs, you should feel comfortable. Enjoy the cool darkness. Now here's what you will do in this theater in your mind. You will script, cast, plan, direct, and produce, and then watch your own mental movies, starring you, of course, living the achievement of your goals right now in present tense. Detail is important, so you must be your own set designer, carefully choosing everything down to the color of the flowers in the vase on the table. You must
Yeah, he's talking about mindfulness right now, is how to use. So he's giving a theater example on how to be mindfulness. So let's go.
be your own wardrobe designer, making those choices right down to whether the necktie a player is wearing has dots or stripes. When you create your mental movie, remember that you are to be performing perfectly, flawlessly, successfully at all times. It doesn't matter what a past reality has been either. This mental movie replaces whatever occurred in the past. When you watch your mental movie, relax and enjoy it. Let it soak in. Revel in it. Done to perfection, you can even give yourself the peak performance advantage of the deja vu effect with your mental movies. Baseball legend Yogi Berra, famous for butchering language, said it's deja vu all over again. But kidding aside, you can create deja vu for yourself
Deja
for any
vu.
situation you choose.
Mm-hmm,
Let me give you an example. Several years ago,
okay.
I was one of several people sent to a business meeting with Lee Iacocca at his home in Palm Springs, California. I expected the other two people to be somewhat intimidated by Iacocca and to be tentative, in a sense
Got
weak
it.
in his presence, and I knew that would be a mistake. Everything I knew, had read, and had observed about Iacocca, much of which I reviewed as part of my preparation for this meeting, told me he was a bottom-line, blunt, even somewhat coarse man who used toughness to test people. I also decided that he was very accustomed to being given information in
Yeah, some guy he went to Miami or something. Yeah, blunt guy. Got it.
certain ways, and in arriving at immediate decisions when possible. Armed with these ideas, and knowing what we had to present, I was able to use mental rehearsal to try out what I would say, and theater of the mind to create a mental movie of how the meeting would go, to culminate with the desired result. As it turns out, all of my expectations were met. Iacocca's house is, of course, imposing. He
Yeah, so basically he's saying I went to like this Miami beach house. This guy, some random course Batman basically came and he had like a mental rehearsal, almost like a theater to and kind of like rehearsing his lines, and it went exactly the way it went. What a surprise! What a surprise! Let's go.
He is a larger-than-life figure. He is very direct in his communication, very blunt in his questions, totally uninhibited in challenging others' statements and assertions, and very impatient with casual conversation, as well as with imprecise ideas. And whether by accident or intent, he was simultaneously dealing with an important stock transaction, taking and returning calls, his attention divided. My colleagues behaved as I feared, both timid and tentative, one using touchy-feely language. The only meeting of the minds there that day was between me and Iacocca. I quickly took control of the meeting. I also quickly diagnosed the communication misfire that had taken place in previous meetings and telephone conversations, and I fixed it. We left with the mission accomplished. As the meeting of nearly an hour unfolded, I had the deja vu effect any number of times, even to the extent of saying the exact words and sentences I'd used in mental rehearsal. Overall, I'd say that 70% of the meeting matched up frame by frame, minute by minute with my mental movie. In our newest PsychoCybernetics book, Zero Resistance Selling, there's a chapter about selling successfully when you're in over your head. And while there are specific techniques for such situations, the bottom line is you need never feel like you're in over your head when you know how to prepare effectively using your creative imagination. Now, as I'm preparing to record this message, I'm also preparing to get into a sulky. For those of you that don't know, that's the cart behind a harness racing horse, and drive in my first horse race at age 43 after a 23-year absence from the sport, and even then never having driven in a race. I've trained the horse I'll drive, including behind the starting gate, so I have some raw material to work with. I've constructed a mental movie of myself driving this first race flawlessly, safely, intelligently, and successfully. The movie is vivid in detail. The clothes I'll wear that day, the color of the gate, the horse next to me, the dirt of the track
Yeah.
below. I've added
So he's
sound.
basically talking about visualization as one of the key things to be enforcing the positive beliefs, and this is something that UFC fighter also keeps doing. Conor McGregor, yeah, he's really good at this as well, which is interesting.
Too. As I play the movie again and again on my theater screen in my own imagination,
That's
I'm
pretty
imprinting my
cool.
self-image with a picture of myself as a competent, confident driver. When the actual race occurs some 20 days from now, it should feel like deja vu to me, merely repeating that which I've already done successfully many times before. Does that seem a bit childish to you? The criticism I hear most often from people about this technique is that it seems childish. Well, I can tell you that there are a lot of very unchildish people who use it. In the past several years, I've appeared on at least a dozen different seminar events where the speaker immediately preceding me was General Norman Schwarzkopf. He and I have hung out together in the green room backstage and in total spent hours together. General Schwarzkopf says that he played out every one of his battle plans in his mind before committing troops to combat. He didn't call the technique by name, but as he described this, it was clear he had been creating mental movies and playing them in the theater of his mind. I wouldn't want to call General Schwarzkopf childish.
Yeah.
What odds will a Las Vegas
I
bookmaker
think this entire chapter is about mental movies. So it's just like mental movie, good. Here, example. So don't worry that much if you're not keeping up.
give on a penniless, muscle-bound Austrian with a terrible accent arriving in America, breaking into movies, becoming the top box office draw, and becoming a multimillionaire? Arnold Schwarzenegger has overcome language, culture, early bad movies, and being the brunt of bad jokes to become one of Hollywood's biggest success stories. As you know, Arnold's rise to fame and fortune and path from Austria to America began as a competitive bodybuilder. At the young age of 15, Arnold says he was very deliberately visualizing himself on stage winning the Mr. Universe contest. That was a mental movie that Arnold played hundreds of times in the theater of his mind. I wouldn't want to call Arnold childish. The second of Dr. Maltz's practical uses of creative imagination is a technique called mental rehearsal. The difference between theater of the mind and mental rehearsal is seeing versus doing. In mental movies you create and watch in the theater, you see yourself doing things. In mental rehearsal, you actually do the things. You can use your PsychoCybernetics key point reminder card to quickly and conveniently recall and use this important information. Mental rehearsal has gained wide, almost universal acceptance in both Olympic and professional athletics in virtually every sport. Dr. James Driscoll, writing in the Journal of Applied Psychology, pointed out that mental rehearsal is even sometimes superior to actual physical practice. He said, you can mentally rehearse batting in the final 20 minutes of the World Series, what you would do under the pressure with a jeering crowd. You can't replicate that in physical practice. I've been on quite a few programs with Olympic gymnastics champion Mary Lou Retton. Mary Lou describes how she practiced her routines in her mind, seeing every step in detail, every leap, every turn, the precise placement of her hands, and of course, the perfect results. There are practical applications for this for just about everybody, not just athletes. When I was preparing a videotape about PsychoCybernetics several years ago, a prominent surgeon told me that he mentally rehearsed each operation in minute detail the night before. He believed this rehearsal allowed him to get a better night's sleep and to go into the surgery in a more relaxed, confident state the next morning. Just about everybody has the opportunity to use mental rehearsal. A member of your police department's bomb squad can mentally rehearse disarming live explosives without being in the actual dangerous environment. An executive can mentally rehearse his presentation to stockholders. A talk show host can mentally rehearse for an upcoming interview. A trial lawyer can mentally rehearse his closing argument. When I first started delivering my #1 speech, which I now call my $1 million speech because it produces over $1 million in income each and every year, I had no opportunity to test it, refine it, massage it, tweak it, and perfect it in front of live audiences. I needed it to work from day one. So I used mental rehearsal to prepare. In my imagination, I delivered the speech dozens of times, listened to how it sounded, felt the rhythm, observed and gauged the audience's response, then tinkered with it, made it better, and delivered it again. Once I had it as I wanted it, I used mental rehearsal to deliver it perfectly. Perfect timing, perfect voice inflection, perfect gestures, perfect body language, dozens more times. By the time I stepped to the stage with it for the first time, it was old hat to me. Here's yet another explanation for the failure of willpower and the superiority of creative imagination, and more information about reprogramming your self-image with the imagination. At about the same time that Dr. Maltz's first book, PsychoCybernetics, was becoming an international sensation, introducing the world to the practical how-tos of self-image psychology, another scientist, equally passionate about finding ways to enhance personal performance, began experiments that would subsequently bring him the Nobel Prize. Roger W. Sperry, a neuropsychologist, uncovered the significance of the split brain. It's now known that the brain has two sides, a left brain and a right brain, and that each has conscious and subconscious thought. In simple terms, the left brain deals with logic, facts and figures, and linear thinking like lists or schedules, and communicates in words, in language. The right brain deals holistically with thoughts, emotions, and sensations, and communicates predominantly in pictures. The left brain might be engaged by filling out an order form or putting together a price quotation. The right brain might be engaged by sexual arousal or a warm bath. Some call these the analytical and the creative brains. Now here's why this is so important to you. Willpower, if you analyze it, belongs to the left brain. It is conveyed in words, in verbal directives, and to make matters worse, typically in negative, don't or won't language. Don't eat fattening foods. Don't smoke. Don't drink. Don't be nervous. Don't worry. I won't lose my temper. I won't be late again. I won't be intimidated. However, the self-image belongs to the right brain. It is the self-image. It accepts, processes, and stores input and communicates to the servo mechanism with pictures. When you try to talk to the self-image in left brain language, it either freezes up or worse, becomes an automatic failure mechanism. It has to struggle mightily to decode the inbound message. Then
Okay. So there are basically two kinds of brain: left brain, right brain. The one brain is logic, other brain is visual. So if you talk logic to the visual part of your brain, that gets stuck, and vice versa. Gotcha. So you guys following, right? It's not too fast.
and most times the decoded message will be in conflict with the existing information held by the self-image, and it requires pictures, not words, to modify that. So at best, the self-image sends the servo mechanism a confused, sabotaged message. It might go something like this. Hey, servo mechanism, this guy wants to stop wasting time and get a lot more done every day. Well, lots of luck, because you and I both know he's a chronic procrastinator, woefully disorganized, and he's late for everything. Then maybe, through teeth-gritted, jaw-clenched, iron willpower, this person might cut off time-wasting conversations, work off an organized list, and be punctual, but only for a very brief time. Then, as willpower slips, he'll snap back to the behaviors compatible with his true self, as understood by the self-image. Trying to alter performance with the left brain directives and willpower cannot work.
Yeah, it's basically saying using willpower and left brain alternative do not work. Because you're using willpower, you're not addressing the beliefs in the first place. You gotta be addressing the beliefs and then changing the willpower. Willpower shouldn't even be in the question. It's a stupid idea, first of all.
Good news is that altering performance with the creative imagination and creative psychocybernetics cannot fail. There is abundant evidence that if you will take the time and trouble to learn how to communicate effectively with your servo mechanism through your self-image, you are absolutely assured of dramatic improvements in your personal performance. Now here are 10 ways to stimulate your imagination, especially if it has been underutilized. Number 1, varied input. When I speak to groups about marketing,
Okay. It's important 10 ways to stimulate imagination. Okay.
I often accuse them of committing intellectual incest. We cannot fail. There is abundant evidence that if you will take the time and trouble to learn how to work off an organized list and be punctual, but only for a very brief time, then as willpower slips, he'll snap back to the behaviors compatible with his true self, as understood by the self-image. Trying to alter performance with the left brain directives and willpower cannot work. The good news is that altering performance with the creative imagination and creative psychocybernetics cannot fail. There is abundant evidence that if you will take the time and trouble to learn how to communicate effectively with your servo mechanism through your self-image, you are absolutely assured of dramatic improvements in your personal performance. Now here are 10 ways to stimulate your imagination, especially if it has been underutilized. Number 1, varied input. When I speak to groups about marketing, I often accuse them of committing intellectual incest, reading only books and trade journals about their business, going to seminars and conferences with people and put on by people in their business, and otherwise hanging out with their own kind. Your imagination can only manufacture from the raw material you give it, so I think it's important to give it a diversified, interesting, and provocative diet. Just for example, I fly a lot, and I've developed a habit of hitting the airport newsstand before long flights and deliberately buying magazines I do not normally or regularly read to take on the plane, knowing I may only tear out a few pages to keep and will leave the rest behind. This time I might include Rolling Stone and the New Republic in the pile. The next time I might grab a Cosmopolitan and a bodybuilder magazine. I'm fortunate as a marketing consultant, I automatically get a lot of exposure to many different businesses and industries, and during the course of the year, I'm probably exposed to the problems, practices, and opportunities of 50 to 60 different fields. I average reading a book a week. I watch for interviews of interesting people on TV. My speaking colleague, Larry King, for example, does an outstanding job with this. These are things I do to give the imagination a lot of diverse raw material to work with. Number 2, take time out to exercise your imagination. Years ago, an author by the name of Joe Carbo ran a full-page ad for one of his books with a headline that read, "Are you too busy earning a living to make any real money?" It sold millions of dollars worth of books because it made people slam to a stop and question their behavior. Far too often, we get going at such a pace of daily routine, we act more like a dumb plow horse with blinders on, just going and going, rather than an intelligent, creative human being. It so happens that Earl Nightingale was the very first author or speaker on these subjects I encountered in my very early teens. I listened to Lead the Field and most of Earl's other recordings so many times that it's all a permanent part of my subconscious. I can hear Earl's voice saying, if a business owner took just 30 minutes a day to sit and use his imagination only to think of new ways to be of better and greater service to his customers, he would soon dominate his field, for that is the last thing his competitors would ever do. That may not be word for word, but it's close. And it's a very good suggestion for an exercise for the imagination. It's a topic you can give to your imagination to brainstorm. Here are a few others. What changes would I make tomorrow if I was told by my doctor today I had 3 years to live? How many ways might I demonstrate or illustrate the comparative value of my product versus the competition? What advice would I give me if I were a paid consultant? Number 3, block out distractions. When you are working with your creative imagination, try to find times when you can be free of distractions. One of my clients found that he could not relax and utilize his imagination in his office. He was too tempted to deal with papers on his desk, too subject to interruption. So he rented a tiny office above a bank, about 15 minutes from his regular office. Equipped it only with a comfortable chair, a CD player and music, a few paintings on the walls, and a pile of notepads and pens. It had no phone, and when he went there, he left his cell phone in the car. This is where he would go, as Edison put it, to sit for ideas. You may not need to go to such an extreme, but it is useful to give yourself a block of time free of interruptions and distractions. Number 4, make yourself as relaxed as possible. When you are using theater of the mind or mental rehearsal, or just asking the imagination for ideas, tension can block the creative machinery. Here, calm body equals calm mind, and physical relaxation can help enormously. Different people seem to have different quick relaxers that work for them. According to one respected biographer, President Kennedy could relax in minutes just by getting out of his desk chair and sitting in the rocking chair a few steps away. There's probably something that signals your body to relax. A cup of herbal tea, picking up a putter and putting balls into a jar, stretching out in a recliner, playing a particular type of music. Find yours and use it. There's an entire session in this program on this subject, and if you need more information and more relaxation techniques, I suggest you pick up a copy of the book PsychoCybernetics 2000 at your bookstore or from the Foundation's office. Another excellent resource is Dr. Deborah Bright's book, Creative Relaxation, also available at bookstores. Number 5, be detail-oriented. Train your imagination to give you vivid detail. Don't settle for just a simple mental image. When using theater of the mind or mental rehearsal, engage as many of the 5 senses as possible. Remember that the more vivid an image, the more impact it has on the self-image. Demand detail for every good idea your imagination hands you. Say that in response to some problem, you get the suggestion to call a certain person. Don't settle for that by itself. You want to be able to see yourself calling that person, mentally prepared and relaxed. Hear the entire conversation in advance. Visualize the desired outcome. Be sure you have a good idea of what you will say and what they will say in response. If you expect some resistance on their part, see them taking the call, starting out with stiff, resistant body language, gradually coming to agreement with you, their body relaxing, their head nodding. Put it all together in a split-screen mental movie. Number 6, always imagine yourself performing perfectly and enjoying successful results in the present tense. The servo mechanism doesn't wear a watch. When you use mental imaging techniques, it's best to always put everything in the present tense. Everything you do in your imagination should reinforce the I am idea, not I want to be or I will. This is in keeping with the most effective way to verbalize most affirmations. For example, I am the kind of a person who has great respect for my time, as well as for others' time, so I always arrive on time. And always picture yourself enjoying peak performance. Number 7, resist interruption by the left brain. If you have been underutilizing your imagination, if you pride yourself on being a very pragmatic, practical individual, if being caught daydreaming will embarrass you, then your left brain is very accustomed to being in control and will keep intruding when you try to let your right brain out of the box. It will try to stop the brainstorming process by instantly critically analyzing each thought as it occurs. It will try and pull you back into left brain activities, writing lists or doing mathematical calculations, for example. You'll need to be aware of this and push the left brain back, not unlike telling somebody in an actual brainstorming session, wait, Bill, we're not going to analyze ideas yet. We first want to get as many listed on the board as possible. Some people who have a significant amount of difficulty with this find an exercise or technique called mind mapping helpful. There are some good books on this subject available by Tony Buzan. Nightingale Conant also has an audio cassette program by Michael Gelb. Basically, the purpose of mind mapping is to get both sides of the brain working collaboratively instead of fighting each other for territorial control. Number 8, replay relevant past successes. One great way to get the imagination ready to create a new mental movie is to replay past successes in similar situations. The quarterback of the Denver Broncos, John Elway, famous for his last-minute comeback drives, has said that he waits on the sidelines for the Broncos defense to get the ball back, to give his offense one last opportunity to pull a game out. He thinks about other times when they have come back under similar or even tougher circumstances or against that same team. Then he is able to clearly envision how they will march down the field to score again. He is using his imagination to first replay past successes to make visualizing the current success easier. Number 9, use both mental movies and mental rehearsal. Both of these techniques have linked and separate value, but don't just use one, use both. And once you've mastered and regularly use these, by all means move on to experiment with additional techniques for enhancing the benefits of your imagination, whether they are additional psychocybernetics techniques or techniques from other sources. The old adage, different strokes for different folks, applies here. You have to try different things to find what works best for you. Number 10, be prepared to capture great ideas. Earl Nightingale said that ideas are like slippery fish. If you don't hook them with a pencil immediately, they'll get away. These days, of course, the pencil is only one of a number of options, although it's still a good one. Many people carry little micro recorders with them so they can quickly dictate an idea when it occurs to them. One CEO that I work with will often hit the speed dial button on his cell phone to access a voicemail set up just to record his ideas. Then every night, his secretary transcribes the day's messages and has it on his desk the next morning. I try to carry some 3x5 cards or a little pad with me everywhere I go. One way or the other, you do want to be responsive whenever your imagination produces good ideas. Refer to your guidebook for more in-depth information and exercises in this area of the new PsychoCybernetics. Now here are some thoughts on creative imagination from Dr. Maltz.
This man was a hockey player who had been in a slump. His season's output was a terrible 6 goals in 50 games. He was on the verge of having to quit the game even though he was in good physical condition, but because of his bad performance, his position on the team was uncertain, and he had become very discouraged. Listen to what he wrote.
A business associate of mine in a casual conversation mentioned the book PsychoCybernetics and how it had improved his thinking. He recommended it to me, and I bought it with the idea that it might help my hockey career as well as my business. I immediately began applying the techniques to improve myself. I sat down in my lounge chair each day in my office and turned the lights off. I reenacted as many situations and as many games as I could remember, especially in the games when I failed miserably. I discovered that in almost every game that I recalled, I distinctly remembered experiencing great emotional fear of being injured while playing. As a matter of fact, this fear seemed to dominate every situation that I could recall. The answer to my difficulty seemed so simple to me as I sat in that dark room. Why, I was constantly thinking of being injured, and this preoccupation of mine was enough to throw my entire game into failure after failure. I immediately began to replace these negative feelings and thoughts with positive feelings and thoughts. I recalled every situation in the past when I had done well and had scored. I relived the excitement and the great feeling of being a winner when I scored these goals. I replaced the negative thoughts, eliminating the fear of injury. I repeated the system each and every day. I moved from my position on the bench to the starting lineup. I began scoring goals. I played the game with new enthusiasm. My success was unbelievable.
We're all aware of the fact that behavior is controlled by the mind, the brain. The brain tells us what to do in the future based on its knowledge of the past. The brain has no future reading or fortune-telling capability. It's a marvelous computer, but it's limited to the past and the present. The only way it can see into the future is through the imagination. And you have total control over your own imagination. You can imagine yourself any way you want to in the future, success or failure. It's all up to you. But all too often, people are not willing to exercise this control. They allow their imagination to destroy their potential by picturing situations of the past in which they have failed. We all carry mental scrapbooks, but instead of preserving the joyous occasions of life, the moments of accomplishment, some people save only their time to failure and frustration. But it's so easy and simple to take control over your imagination. All you have to remember is that the brain has a hard time distinguishing between real and imagined experiences, if they are vividly enough portrayed. Mental practice can help you perform better in real life. We have all kinds.
It's actually an interesting question. What's the difference between like a real imagination and imaginary imagination, I guess? Uh, Real imagination versus imaginary imagination. Uh-huh.
Of watches these days. We have bird watches, weight watches, stock market watches, and weather watches. Now, how about mind watches? The mind watcher is keenly aware of the operations in that all-important area, the mind. He is quick to fight off tumors of doubt when they invade.
Okay.
And on the other hand, the mind watcher watches for the better side of himself. He builds in his imaginations picture of his past successes. He consequently works to keep improving his opinion of himself.
Okay, so listen. Here's a 10 ways to stimulate your imagination, right? One is varied input. So take as much as different kinds of information as you can. Consume different styles, basically is saying. Next is time to exercise your imagination. I mean, use it is basically saying. Next is block out your distractions. Okay. Relax as much as possible. Okay. Detail oriented. Be very detail oriented in your imagination. Imagine yourself in the present tense and perfectly. Okay. Then resist your left brain activities as the logic. So faith trumps logic. So you need to use faith to actually trump the logic. Replay past successes, both mental movies and mental rehearsals. Mental movies and mental rehearsals, if you keep track, one is seeing, other is like doing. Imagine yourself seeing yourself do it, and others like doing it actually in your imagination. Then be prepared to capture the musings, the creative musings, the inspirations that you get. We could see this is why I play this at 2x. That's all he had to say. It's like 10 points, but it's like 1 hour, bruh.
In this session, we'll talk about developing truly unshakable self-confidence. When cartoonist Walt Kelly had his pogo character say, "We have met the enemy and they is us," he brilliantly summed up the basic challenge of peak performance that Dr. Malt addresses with PsychoCybernetics. Specific to self-confidence, the number one enemy is what Dr. Malt identified as the critic within. And effectively managing your critic within is the single most important set of skills you can develop to give yourself the advantage of unshakable self-confidence. Every person has some level of self-confidence. Otherwise, they live entirely governed by fear and worry and never get out of bed. They wouldn't have enough confidence in themselves to pick out clothes to wear or to find a way to work in the morning or to pick out food in the grocery store. Most adults, though, wind up with situational self-confidence and fluctuating levels of self-confidence. The person who can confidently express his opinions in meetings at work with his regular group of colleagues and supervisors, but who freezes up.
There's actually a beautiful book about this called The Gremlin. What is it called? Talking Gremlin? Something like that.
Scrunches down in his chair and hopes not to be called on when a couple of strangers are added to the meeting is living with situational self-confidence. He's confident only under certain favorable conditions. That's situational self-confidence. The person who is confident today but tentative tomorrow for no apparent reason has fluctuating levels of self-confidence occurring for reasons invisible to the observer. The purpose of PsychoCybernetics is to stabilize self-confidence so that it cannot be shaken by any particular set of circumstances and so that it shows up ready to work every single day. You probably had the annoying little household experience of installing a brand new battery in a small appliance, smoke alarm, or flashlight, but still not getting power into the appliance. The alarm still emits its low battery warning beep, the light won't come on or flickers and dies. On closer examination, you find there's something interrupting the flow of power from the little doodads on top of the battery to the little receptors in the unit. They might not be squeezed tight enough, so there's a little space between them. It might be something as tiny as a fragment of lint or dust. There's plenty of power in the battery, but something is interfering with its reaching the product. In similar fashion, there is supposed to be a direct link from self-image to self-confidence. What gets in the way most of the time, blocking the energy flow, is the critic within. Let me share one of my own conversations with my critic within. Last year, at age 42, after a 23-year absence from the sport, except as a spectator, I decided to secure my license to professionally drive harness racing horses. For those of you who don't know, there are two types of horse racing: thoroughbred horse racing, with jockeys on the horses' backs, and standardbred horse racing, with drivers in little carts called sulkies. I grew up around this and spent several summers of my youth at the racetrack, mostly shoveling manure, cleaning harness, fetching coffee, and generally making a nuisance of myself, but also jogging, that is, exercising some horses, even training a few. I never lost my love for it. A few years ago, as financial success allowed, I began investing in horses. Today, a corporation owned by my wife and I owns both thoroughbred and harness racing horses, and pieces of such horses racing in 3 states, plus babies, plus broodmares. Then last year, I decided to actually drive in races. This means I have to pass a written test, then a practical test, then drive in 25 qualifying and county fair races. Then I can get a provisional license to drive in a real race at a real racetrack. This is a lot of work. My explanation is that I'm having my midlife crisis. I'm too old and tall and chubby to get a sports car, and my wife won't let me have a mistress, so this is it. But before anybody else even got a chance to question my sanity, my critic within had its shot. It sounded something like this. Wait just a minute, Dan. First of all, you are 42 years old, man. Isn't that a little late to start racing horses?
Yeah.
You're not exactly in great physical shape. You haven't been behind a horse in 23 years. You'll be looked at by everybody at the track as a goofball or dilettante, laughed at behind your back. Besides, you've got a business to run, an incredibly busy speaking, consulting, and travel schedule, another book contract. How can you find time for all this? The tests alone are killers. When's the last time you had to study for a test? This is also going to be expensive, a waste of money. You'll be lucky not to kill yourself. Don't make a fool out of yourself. Now, right about here, most people fold. The critic within wins. The self-image is sitting there, waiting, watching, and listening, wondering what you'll do, how you'll respond. As soon as you start thinking, well, maybe this isn't such a great idea, that critic within smells the blood in the water and bears down. The self-image shrugs its shoulders and walks away.
It's actually not the creative idea. Critic is right, I guess. Yeah.
The servo mechanism says, I thought we were about to start a new project. The self-image says, false alarm.
Yeah.
I know there's real work to be done here. And by the way, just trying to come back with some snappy positive thinking stuff won't cut it. If I try to fend off my critic within with the typical cliches, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, attitude determines altitude, remember the little engine who could, believe me, the critic within will eat me for lunch.
Yep.
Of course, you may never think about climbing into a sulky and racing a horse, or buying one for that matter, but whatever you decide to do, your critic within will jump up. At age 71, the actor Paul Newman is driving race cars. Martha Stewart left a six-figure income career on Wall Street to start her own business. Mike Dick and Dick Vermeil have risked failure, humiliation, and embarrassment to return to coaching. What will you do? Do you want to leave a good-paying, secure job to launch a business? Move from a big city to a small town to completely change your lifestyle? Adopt a child? Take a year-long sabbatical to write a book? Pick up golf? Skydive? Bungee jump? Go on a real African safari? Whatever it is, you'll need to have the same kind of conversation with your critic within that I had with mine. Then you'll need to do some specific, targeted self-image re-engineering to support your new goals. So here's what I talked through with my critic within. You're right, I admit it. I am 42, and I'm not in terrific physical condition.
Yeah.
But fortunately, harness racing is a sport where age or being a bit overweight doesn't matter much. There are quite
42 is not that old, but okay.
few drivers in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. So what I may lack in quick reflexes or athleticism, I can make up with the quality of my thinking, my understanding of handicapping a race, my ability to relax under pressure, and my enthusiasm. I can also get busy and lose a few pounds, do a little exercise, improve my flexibility. You're also right. A lot of folks at the track won't take me seriously, and I'll make some dumb mistakes, screw up sometimes, and probably make a giant ass out of myself a couple times. But that's nothing new. In everything I've ever done, I've started out the same way, making dumb mistakes, being criticized by some, being laughed at by some, having my good sense questioned. I was terrible when I started speaking. Now I'm one of the top speakers in the country. I have no formal training in advertising. I'm not even a college grad, but today I command fees upward from $15,000 to write an ad. I went from dumb, inept, and awful to smart, skilled, and successful those times, so I understand the process. I can do it again, and I'll learn the respect and friendship of others as I go. You're also right about how busy I am, but I'm self-employed. I control my own schedule, and I can make time available if I choose to. I've worked hard to get to this point. I can afford to indulge myself, and I deserve it. I'm not crazy about having to take tests, but I've got a good mind. I know how to learn. I know about techniques I can use to make it easier. So this is an inconvenience, but it's no reason to reject the whole idea. The whole thing is going to be expensive, and that will bug me a little because I hate wasting money. So I'll look for some ways to mitigate the expense. Just for example, I'll get material out of it for speeches and my books. It'll re-energize me, so maybe I'll be more productive in my business activities. And again, I can afford it. I've even been inordinately frugal in some areas, so I'm going to let myself enjoy this without guilt. There is some risk of injury, but no more so than lots of other sports. Then I put together some evidence to convince my self-image that I was sincere about this and that I could do it. I agreed on a plan with one of my trainers to begin getting to the track for a few days here, a few days there as my schedule allowed, where I'd start back just exercising horses. Then after a while, going faster training miles, then training
Interesting. So he's taking some time out of the day to actually investigate this fear deeper. So interesting. Right now, he's not even using his imagination. He's kind of like accepting the fear. You know what? I think you might be right, but let me actually investigate this because the fear right here. So if I don't know whether you guys are keeping track of it or not, but basically this guy wants to ride a horse, but he's insecure. He's thinking, I'm 42. Why do I have to ride a horse? Blah blah blah. Whatever. Right. The real and there's a desire for him to ride the horse, and there's a critic within. And I think the biggest problem that the way he's going about it, which I find interesting, is that he's acknowledging the fear. Number one, he's saying, you know what, I got you. Yep, this is probably going to be expensive, but I accept that. Maybe let me like take it as a face value, but let me. He's first of all taking this belief from the realm of truth, knowingness to the realm of assumption, right? So that's the first step to know that, oh, I know I'm not gonna be good at horse racing. Two, you know what, I'm assuming that this is going to be this hard, so let me actually check the actual sensory of it, whether it it goes well or not, and to see whether it has similar risk to other things I'm already doing, or am I personally kind of inflating the thingy, inflating the um, problems.
behind the starting gate. At the same time, I'd get the materials and study for the test over a 3-month period of time. When the time came to actually start driving at the fairs, I'd buy one or two older, experienced horses that were easy to drive. I'd study films. I'd put it all together into a 12-month plan. The critic within said, well, nuts. I'll believe it when I see it. But the self-image said, okay, he's not going to be talked out of this. He's serious about it, and it looks like he's putting together what it'll take, so we better get busy. Servo mechanism says, lock on. The goal has been accepted, the automatic success mechanism activated, the cybernetic process is underway. By the way, we all talk to ourselves. Everybody has a continually running inner dialogue. The question for you is whether you'll put your goals, aspirations, optimism, and best self in charge, or let your critic within take over. There are, of course, also outside critics. Sherry Lansing, one of the most successful women executives in Hollywood, once noted that it is a lot easier to be a movie critic than to be a movie maker. Critics exist in great abundance in many varieties. There are jealous critics, backseat driver and Monday morning quarterback critics, even well-intentioned critics determined to save you from yourself. There are even critics disguised as encouragers. These are the folks who say, you certainly don't need to diet, you look fine just the way you are, even though you are clinically obese with heightened risk of heart disease and quietly miserable. I've been a speaker at several events where Dick Vitale has also been speaking and had the opportunity to spend a little time with him. Dick is the frenetic, enthusiastic college basketball announcer at ABC and ESPN. Referring to critics, Dick says, if I listened to those people, I'd never have become a coach or a broadcaster. I wouldn't have written 5 books. I wouldn't have been on the David Letterman show. There is an old saying, the kite rises against the wind, and successful people learn to rise against criticism, even in many cases bolstered by criticism. It is actually a matter the more you attempt in life, and the bigger the things are.
It's funny because I'm just noticing this crash. I remember this was like doing my 5th grade. I don't know how I forgot it. Like I think someone took like an iron scale and whoop, I think so. I don't remember.
If you do attempt, the more external criticism you'll encounter. This is why developing unshakable self-confidence is so important. One leading entrepreneur who thrives against criticism is Martha Stewart. She had a very difficult time convincing anybody to publish her first book, a giant coffee table-sized, costly book filled with full-color photographs. Finally, a publisher grudgingly printed 25,000 copies. The book has since sold nearly 750,000 copies. Martha Stewart has gone on to create an entire industry around herself, including 18 books, a syndicated newspaper column, her own television show, branded products, a mail-order business, in total generating an estimated $200 million a year. In 1990, while the entire magazine business was suffering from declining ad revenues and rising costs, she launched her magazine, Martha Stewart Living. Industry experts predicted early demise. Today, it sells more than 2 million copies a month. Martha Stewart has been criticized and made the brunt of jokes throughout her business life. Leno, Letterman, and countless stand-up comics take shots at her. Tabloids portray her as a conniving, vicious, ruthless witch. Critics chop away at her books, her magazine, her TV show. While she admits to occasionally being hurt by some of the harshest criticism, she recognizes that it is part of the game, inseparable from achievement. She remains totally self-confident in her ability to understand and respond to the needs, interests, and desires of her ever-growing legion of fans. In the area of marketing, I'm constantly counseling my clients to concentrate on how their customers vote, with their wallets, not on others' opinions. I tell them the only people who deserve a vote are your customers. Your peers, your neighbors, your relatives' opinions don't really matter. Your spouse, mother, and best friend can all hate your advertising, but if it works and your customers respond to it, that's what matters. When you put all the criticism you receive in perspective, and you put your best self in charge of this dialogue, you protect yourself from interference and allow it to connect with your servo mechanism to produce unshakable self-confidence. I like the visual image of the bullfighter who goes into the ring with mustard on his sword. That's long represented my approach. I go into every situation assumptively. In selling, in my mind, the sale is already made before the meeting. At the meeting, we're just working out the details. I'd say that my closing percentage in face-to-face, one-on-one selling has been in the 90% range for a number of years. In selling to groups from the platform, as a speaker, my dollars per person statistics are superior to just about every other speaker in the business, including a number of big names you know. While there is a multi-step, multifaceted selling system behind that, relaxed, unshakable self-confidence is a big part of it. Over the years, I've come to understand the difference between made-up self-confidence and self-image-driven self-confidence. The first kind is mostly just bluster, like whistling in the dark while walking past a cemetery late at night. You create this kind of self-confidence out of thin air, often with gimmicks like jumping up and down, waving your arms around, and chanting, "I am great," or in seminars, breaking wood planks with your head or walking on hot coals. You can whip up this kind of confidence by listening to a hot motivational tape or giving yourself a great pep talk. But this kind of disconnected self-confidence always turns out to be situational and temporary and unreliable. I used it early in my business life because it was all I had, and I didn't know any better. Lasting, reliable, relaxed, unshakable self-confidence is directly linked to the self-image. Truly unshakable self-confidence has a four-cornered foundation. First, there is the automatic success mechanism put to work by your self-image. For this to exist, you have to have silenced the critics and be able to neutralize them whenever they again rear their ugly heads. I'll go into great detail on how to program your automatic success mechanism in session 9. Second, there is superior knowledge.
Automatic success mechanism. Interesting. I read this book long time back. I don't know why. It's a pretty good book, but it is not that great for as a logical person like me. It takes some time because he doesn't understand why this is work. But
You have to know you know, or are busily acquiring the knowledge you need to achieve your goals. You just can't be very confident when you are winging it or faking it. The minute you're challenged, your confidence will melt and crack out from under you like very thin ice. Third, there is superior skill or competence. But keep in mind, this can be developed through synthetic experience as well as real experience. Fourth, the ability to relax, so you know you can perform under pressure. One of the legendary personalities I've had the privilege of appearing on seminar events with and getting to know a bit backstage is Charlton Heston. Heston is thin ice. You create this kind of number of big names you're advertising, but if it works and your customers respond to it, that's what matters. When you put all the criticism you receive in perspective and you put your best self in charge of this dialogue, you protect yourself from interference and allow it to connect with your servo mechanism to produce unshakable self-confidence. I like the visual image of the bullfighter who goes into the ring with mustard on his sword. That's long represented my approach. I go into every situation assumptively. In selling, in my mind, the sale is already made before the meeting. At the meeting, we're just working out the details. I'd say that my closing percentage in face-to-face, one-on-one selling has been in the 90% range for a number of years. In selling to groups from the platform, as a speaker, my dollars per person statistics are superior to just about every other speaker in the business, including a number of big names you know. While there is a multi-step, multifaceted selling system behind that, relaxed, unshakable self-confidence is a big part of it. Over the years, I've come to understand the difference between made-up self-confidence and self-image-driven self-confidence. The first kind is mostly just bluster, like whistling in the dark while walking past a cemetery late at night. You create this kind of self-confidence out of thin air, often with gimmicks like jumping up and down, waving your arms around, and chanting, "I am great," or in seminars, breaking wood planks with your head or walking on hot coals. You can whip up this kind of confidence by listening to a hot motivational tape or giving yourself a great pep talk. But this kind of disconnected self-confidence always turns out to be situational and temporary and unreliable. I used it early in my business life because it was all I had, and I didn't know any better. Lasting, reliable, relaxed, unshakable self-confidence is directly linked to the self-image. Truly unshakable self-confidence has a four-cornered foundation. First, there is the automatic success mechanism put to work by your self-image.
wow, true self-confidence has 4 corners. Okay. Confidence has 4 corners. Okay, go on.
For this to exist, you have to have silenced the critics and be able to neutralize.
Okay, silence the critic. Yeah. Silence the critic. Okay.
Them whenever they again rear their ugly heads. I'll go into great detail on how to program your automatic success mechanism in session 9.
Okay.
Second, there is superior knowledge. You have to know
Superior knowledge. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with superior knowledge.
you know, or are busily acquiring the knowledge you need to achieve your goals. You just can't be very confident when you are winging it or faking it. The minute you're challenged, your confidence will melt and crack out from under you like very thin ice. Third, there is superior skill or competence. But keep in mind, this can be developed
Okay. Superior skill. Gotcha.
through synthetic experience as well as real experience. Fourth, the ability to relax, so you know you can perform under pressure. One of the legendary personalities I've had the privilege of appearing on seminar events with and getting to know a bit backstage is Charlton Heston. Heston exudes self-confidence. When James Cameron, now famous as the director of the movie Titanic, was asked why he cast Heston as the CIA director in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie True Lies, Cameron said that Charlton Heston was the only person who could be believed intimidating Arnold. As you know, Charlton Heston has had a long, distinguished acting career, best known for bringing epic, larger-than-life historical figures like Moses, Michelangelo, Thomas Jefferson, and others to the big screen. In talking with Charlton Heston backstage, listening to his speech, and reading some of his interviews, I saw that Heston's approach to a successful career mirrored this four-cornered foundation of unshakable self-confidence. Charlton Heston modestly says that, in his case, confidence predated talent. He says, even when I was a young actor trying out for parts I was wrong for, I was always still positive that I would get them. Of course, I got my fair share of rejections, but as an actor, it's crucial that you believe you are going to get every part, and that you can make every part work. Otherwise, you won't get any of them. Heston told me he felt he had been very consistent throughout his career about accepting responsibility for his success in general and the quality of his performances in specific. Consistent in handling both rejection and criticism calmly, and consistent in having confidence in his abilities. In other words, Charlton Heston has a strong, healthy self-image that has kept his automatic success mechanism turned on all the time. Finally, when you watch Heston work, it's very clear that he is relaxed and enjoys what he does. Heston says, if you don't love what you do, it comes across in ways you might not even be consciously aware of. He's also not obsessed with perfection, so he has no fear of failure. While remembered for his blockbuster films like The Ten Commandments, he has been in his share of flops. And even though a bad movie is the product of writers, directors, and actors, Heston says he has always looked at the experiences for things he might do better the next time. He says it's dangerous to think that every undertaking must be successful, or you are somehow failing yourself. Nobody always wins. Man is fallible, but your mistakes should not shake your basic self-confidence. That's in keeping with everything Dr. Maltz had to say about distinguishing between you and your mistakes. Too many people destroy the self-image by merging the two. Now here's a list of 5 ways Dr. Maltz suggested to maximize your progress with PsychoCybernetics to build greater confidence. Number 1, refocus on a daily plan every day. The very best way to build and strengthen your self-confidence is to do something and to get something done every day that you recognize as moving you measurably closer to important goals.
Wow, okay. Wow. Of course. Like what we're doing right now. So let me go back a minute. Okay. Damn. This thing is bugging. But okay. What is this? Things to do to self-confidence. Okay.
Says he has always looked at the experiences for things he might do better the next time. He says it's dangerous to think that every undertaking must be successful, or you are somehow failing yourself. Nobody always wins. Man is fallible, but your mistakes should not shake your basic self-confidence. That's in keeping with everything Dr. Maltz had to say about distinguishing between you and your mistakes. Too many people destroy the self-image by merging the two. Now here's a list of 5 ways Dr. Maltz suggested to maximize your progress with PsychoCybernetics to build greater confidence. Number 1, refocus on a daily plan every day.
Refocus on a daily plan every day.
The very best way to build and strengthen your self-confidence is to do something and to get something done every day that you recognize as moving you measurably closer to important goals. Many people actually do a lot of things that do contribute to progress, but they don't take note of them to reinforce their self-confidence. Included in your daily plan should be some time invested in acquiring or strengthening your knowledge and know-how related to your goals and activities. The simple idea of a written list and checking off those things that are accomplished is a great confidence builder. Number 2, establish a self-monitoring system.
Establish a system. Okay.
With some kind of chart or graph or calendar, you can visually see that you are moving forward, even if you have a temporary setback or a bad day. When I train salespeople, for example, I ask them to set up a little chart with 10 horizontal bars and 30 vertical bars. Down the side, you list 10 things you want to do every single day that you know will help you achieve your sales goals. These might be things like make 5 extra phone calls at the end of every day, or send out 10 prospecting letters, or skip the mid-morning gossip session at the office coffee machine and get a productive appointment scheduled then instead. With each of these 10 things listed down the left side of the chart, you then have 30 blocks stretching out to the right of the item for the days in the month. Each time you do one of these things, you put a green dot, a gold star, or a big check mark in the box. Yes, you'll have empty boxes as you go along. Yes, you may have a bad day and wind up with all the boxes empty. But as you see more and more boxes filled, your confidence in your own ability to keep commitments with yourself grows, and that success breeds more success. This idea isn't limited to salespeople. Let's say you want to lose quite a bit of weight. What 10 things might you list on the chart? One might be having a light, healthy breakfast or cereal and fruit instead of, say, Pop-Tarts and donuts, my old, now discarded favorites. Another might be walking upstairs when an opportunity to take the elevator is available. Another might be eating 5 servings of raw vegetables during the day. Another might be drinking 5 glasses of water. Another might be a half hour of reading books or articles on health, again to improve your knowledge and know-how, and so on.
Okay.
Number 3, secure the support of others and report to them often.
Secure the support of others. Okay. When we become famous, guys, we'll also secure the support.
Any athlete will tell you that accountability automatically improves performance. Just the act of reporting on your progress to someone is helpful in staying on track, and when you report following through on your commitments and get their feedback, your confidence grows. Habit change goals can be shared with a lot of people, like weight loss or quitting smoking. For these kinds of goals, you may want to tell a number of family members and friends, know that they have their eye on you, and be able to talk with them about your progress. You'll want to be more selective about sharing financial, career, business, or other achievement-type goals, choosing only 1 or 2 people you can trust to be discreet and trust to be genuinely supportive and not envious or jealous. You may be able to find a PsychoCybernetics study partner and help that person while that person helps you. Number 4, reward yourself for progress. Too many people keep their noses so stuck to the grindstone, they wear themselves out even while they are making progress, and wind up feeling like failures when they are really successes. You can build your confidence by celebrating your small victories and daily or weekly progress. Don't just wait to reward yourself for giant benchmarks. Reward yourself with dinner out, buying new clothing, throwing a small party for a few friends. Number 5, avoid burnout by giving yourself a break. It's interesting that one of the common ingredients cropping up in a number of modern, popular, and effective weight loss programs, including Weight Watchers, is the idea of a break, a day off, 1 out of 7 days where the do's and don'ts are relaxed. If you put yourself under unrelenting pressure, you're in danger of burnout. Again, athletes will tell you that it's difficult to be self-confident and mentally and emotionally tired at the same time. The saying, fatigue makes cowards of us all, applies. I recently talked to a man who had realized that for the past 5 years, he'd used all his vacation time to go to seminars, and that doing so might be a mistake. By not giving himself any breaks, any opportunities to just relax, he was muting the positive impact of the educational experiences with mental, emotional, and physical fatigue. In my speaking activities, unshakable self-confidence is extremely important every time I step to the stage. My clients at Peter Lowe International, who put on the 25 to 30 giant success events each year, where I get to speak alongside Zig Ziglar and other famous speakers, wisely put about a 6-week break into the middle of each year's schedule and another 6-week break between the end of one year's schedule and the start of the next. And over the years, I've discovered that these breaks come along just in time. Just as my enthusiasm for giving these presentations is tiring, and my confidence about the results that I'll achieve on stage is wavering a bit with fatigue. It's important to find ways to give yourself little breaks, to relax, regroup, and re-energize. Measure your progress, and celebrate your victories to strengthen your self-confidence. Again, please refer to your guidebook for more in-depth information and exercises in this area of the new PsychoCybernetics. Now here are a few comments about self-confidence from Dr. Maltz.
I decided I wanted to become a plastic surgeon. Now, this was 45 years ago, and few people had ever heard of plastic reparative surgery. It was a new field, and there were only about a dozen plastic surgeons in the whole country. I clearly remember the day when I told my mother what I wanted to do. She looked at me suspiciously. A plastic surgeon? What's that, she asked. I explained it to her, a doctor who takes care of the scars of people who have had accidents or children born with disfigurements. My mother was still unimpressed. Max, she said, what's this nonsense plastic surgery? It's a new kind of surgery, Mom, I replied. Are you crazy? Must you start something new, she asked. And where will you get your patients? Who will come to you? But I wasn't worried. They'll come, I said. But my mother was not satisfied. Come out of the thin air. Dr. Smith brought you into the world. He's old now. You can be his assistant. I told her that I wasn't interested in going into general practice. But my mother was always full of advice. So be a plastic surgeon, she said. But first, marry a rich girl. Live in a 2-family house. You can have your office downstairs and you live upstairs. Then, after 15 years when you make a lot of money, you can become a plastic surgeon. Crazy? No, Ma, I told her. Must you start some way to do it? You don't understand. And since when are you so smart? She began to weep. What is the matter with the younger generation? In my time, we had more sense. Why don't you be more practical, Max? You'll starve. I tried to comfort her. I assured her that she should not worry, that I would become a plastic surgeon and that I would be successful. I had a goal then as a young man, and I stuck to that goal. I had to go to Europe for postgraduate study in this new field of plastic surgery. And then, when I was finally ready to practice plastic surgery on my own, I came back to New York and opened my office. I waited for my first patient. The first week passed, and not a telephone call, except for my mother. How are you doing, Max? She asked. Fine, I said. Very fine. Then the second week passed, and not a telephone call, except for my mother. Max, how are you doing? And I replied, much better, Mom, much better. But then the third week, and still not a telephone call. I began to worry. Perhaps my family and friends were right. Perhaps I was out of my mind to search for a goal that they didn't understand, even though I did. I began to look at things bleakly. Perhaps I would never become a plastic surgeon. Perhaps I had made a terrible mistake. But I had the courage to say, no, don't worry, I'll get my first patient. The fourth week, there was a telephone call, and this time it was not from my mother. It was from a classmate who had graduated from medical school with me. He knew I was a plastic surgeon, and he recommended my first patient. I waited for him. My first patient. My friend brought him in. He was a shoe salesman who had a fractured nose from an auto accident. I examined this man and was confident that I could repair the damage and make him breathe properly and look like a human being. The man was anxious to know how much it would cost. I thought for a minute and knew that I would need at least $500. I hesitated for a second, then blurted out, $500. The patient was horrified. But I'm only a shoe clerk, he said. My friend took me into another room and bawled the hell out of me. He's not a millionaire. What's the matter with you? Haven't you got any sense? They left, and I was heartbroken. I had lost my first patient. The world had come to an end. But then, a few days later, the shoe salesman called me on the phone and asked if I could do any better. I said, look, you're a young man, 25 years old. According to the Bible, you've got another 50 years to go. Is it too much to ask you to pay $500 now? Actually, it's only $10 a year. And that's how I got my first patient. And now, 45 years later, I still have his before and after pictures. And I'll never part with those photographs as long as I live. Why? Because my courage is hidden there.
Congrats, man. Congrats. Congrats, dude. GG. Good job.
In this session, you'll discover the power of strategic relaxation to achieve peak performance. Between the time Dr. Maltz first published his findings in 1960 and now, the average adult's working hours per week have increased by nearly 25%. Two-career households are the norm. Computers, fax machines, cell phones, beepers, and other technology have both dramatically sped up the pace of everyday living and made it almost impossible to get a breathing break from total accessibility. I even see people sitting next to me on airplanes who are all wired in. They have a laptop and modem connected to the earphone, they're getting faxes, their beepers beeping. Even at 30,000 feet in the air, they can't get a break. Downsizing and career insecurity have set in. The challenges of parenting are far more complex than they were a decade ago. Relationships between men and women are far more stressful. There's massive information overload, time overload, sensory overload, technology overload. The results of all this can be measured in the heightened consumption of both over-the-counter and prescription medicines for stomach disorders, insomnia, headaches, and migraines, depression, and fatigue. Advertising for these kinds of products is now the fastest growing segment of all advertising from total accessibility. People are also I see people sitting next to me on airplanes who are all wired in. They have a laptop and modem connected to the earphone, they're getting faxes, there's beepers. Two of the hottest selling health food store products have been melatonin, beeper, insomnia. Even at 30,000 feet in the air, they can't get a anxiety. Downsizing predicted 35 years ago. We have become a stressed out society dependent on a shelf full of pills and potions just for day-to-day emotional survival. Fortunately, the science of psychocybernetics provides us with drug-free, cost-free, natural, do-it-yourself tranquilizers, stress relievers, and performance enhancers. But before we discuss those, let's consider just how damaging and destructive, unchecked, or poorly managed stress can be. Here's a startling and important statement made by our colleague Dr. Bobby Sommer in one of the PsychoCybernetics Foundation's books, PsychoCybernetics 2000. It is quite probable that the inability to relax may be the only significant obstacle between you and peak performance. My PsychoCybernetics Foundation colleague, Matt Oxley, wrote in his book, The Inner Game of Selling, that one of the most productive things you can do in selling is learn how to relax. The inability to relax paralyzes the servo mechanism. Dr. Maltz talked about the automatic success mechanism being jammed by stress. As we'll discuss later, the automatic failure mechanism can also be given control by the inability to relax. Everyone has heard of writer's block. Most writers, including famous and successful writers, struggle with it from time to time. One of my editors described it as creative impotence. It's a good description as it symptomatically mimics sexual dysfunction. There is nothing more terrifying and frustrating to a writer than sitting down at the computer, putting fingers on keys, and having nothing appear on the screen. Some writers suffer from this for weeks, even months on end. Some have destroyed their careers by trying to break free of the block with drugs or alcohol. Of course, you may not be a writer, but the same hazard lurks for you in whatever you do. For a sales professional, a mental block can send him spinning into a slump it'll be very hard to recover from. He may become uncertain of himself, tentative, even tongue-tied around prospective clients, retreat into procrastination and busy work to avoid confrontation. As the self-doubt grows, the self-image shrinks, as Dr. Maltz often described it, to the size of a small potato. The business owner or manager who gets blocked may lose his entrepreneurial enthusiasm and resilience. He'll become indecisive and unable to resolve problems. Soon, problems magnify in importance and multiply in number. As he questions himself, his self-image shrinks. The athlete who gets blocked goes into a similar slump. He may desperately begin experimenting with changes to the mechanics of his game or his equipment. As his confidence disappears, his self-image shrinks. Mental blocks also occur simply because we think less creatively as we grow older. One study quoted in Men's Fitness magazine found that 5-year-olds come up with original ideas as answers to questions 90% of the time, but 45-year-olds do so only 5% of the time. We might say that the mind gets less elastic, flexible, and dynamic with age, although here at the PsychoCybernetics Foundation, we do not accept that as a mandate. Anyway, everybody gets blocked sometimes, although different people become stuck in different situations. One person may freeze up as the deadline for important proposal approaches. Another may be paralyzed at the thought of talking to his son about sex. A top salesman may have a selling slump, a baseball all-star batting slump. Even what many people call burnout is often really a mental block that can be very temporary in nature. Every variation of a creative block has fundamentally the same causes and corrective actions. The three most important things to remember are, first, it is possible to prevent having these blocks, or to at least reduce the number, frequency, and severity of the blocks by strengthening the self-image. Second, there are specific
He's basically saying there are three ways to resolve this block. One is using your self-image to relax, and that was the first one.
ways to break the block, so there's no reason to panic when one occurs. Third, every variety of creative block is best removed with relaxation. Let me go back to writer's block for a minute. At the very most, I experience it only once or twice a year, and then only for a day or less.
Very interesting that he just said. Any block can be removed from relaxation. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting, the point that he said that. Yep, because I did use breathing techniques a lot for relaxation, and that's actually something that did help me for letting go and stuff. So it's pretty interesting that he says that.
Unlike most writers who struggle with it often, I rarely face it at all. There's good reason for that. It so happens that I have to be very prolific and fast. I write a lot. In addition to writing books, including at least one new one a year, cassette programs like this one, and 2 newsletters every month for my own businesses, I also do a great deal of direct response advertising copywriting for hundreds of clients. Every week, I write full-page ads, lengthy sales letters, and brochures. All things combined, in an average week, I turn out the equivalent of 2 full-length hardbound books. And I'm often up against tight, demanding deadlines. I must be able to get out of bed, sit down at the computer, and instantly, with no warm-up and no need to get in the mood, pour words onto paper at a breakneck pace. I realized years ago that the only way to sustain such a level of productivity, also free, was never to be derailed by writer's block. I decided I simply could not afford it. So for starters, I used PsychoCybernetics techniques to re-engineer my self-image, specifically to prevent writer's block. My self-image is of a boundlessly creative, prolific, fast writer with vast memory banks of information and experience who can sit down and have material pour out of me like a California mudslide down the side of a cliff. I know that when I need them, the juices will flow. Beyond that, I've trained and conditioned my servo mechanism to search my memory and imagination to find the starting point or the big idea I need for my next writing project while I rest, nap, or even sleep at night. So I wake up ready to write. All of this allows me to approach my writing projects in a completely relaxed, confident state.
You know what, guys? We're gonna figure this out super fast. Everything's making a lot of sense to me now. I understand what he's doing, why he's doing, why what he did worked. Very interesting. Emotional.
So I can function at peak performance level. One of the most frustrating illustrations of the power of relaxation to affect performance is being able to do something flawlessly when it doesn't count, but failing miserably when it does. Pro golfers say that there are lots of weekend golfers who can putt for show, but very few who can putt for dough. I happen to know a golfer, a golf instructor, who is a real-life tin cup. He can hit the ball straight as an arrow every time he steps to the tee, get amazing distance, and also make incredible putts time after time after time, unless he's in a tournament. On the 2 occasions he's tried turning pro, his usually perfect game has come apart at the seams like a cheap suit in a storm. When it doesn't count, he can outperform Tiger Woods. When it does count, he can't stay out of the woods. Some years back, in training chiropractors to deliver effective presentations to their patients, I worked with one doctor who could flawlessly, persuasively, and brilliantly deliver a powerful presentation time after time, on stage in a seminar or role-playing for a video camera. But face-to-face with a patient, he disintegrated into a mumbling mess. Both these fellows performed well while relaxed, but terribly when they lost that relaxation. In a relaxed state, these individuals were at the top of their games. Take away the relaxed state, though, and you took away the game. It is obviously important to be able to relax and put yourself into a relaxed state when needed. This is what we call strategic relaxation. Relaxation, as we discussed it here, is not about being a loose, soft, vegged out wet noodle. Instead, it is about being able to perform in a relaxed state even in stressful circumstances. You can count on your servo mechanism to rise to the occasion, given a relaxed state. Dr. Maltz provided 2 PsychoCybernetics techniques for strategic relaxation. One is called step in, step out. The other, calm mind, calm body, calm body, calm mind. With the calm technique, you begin by training your servo mechanism to react to the command. Here are Dr. Maltz's
Step in, step out, ka. Okay. Calm body, calm mind was the second one. Okay. Nobody's gonna watch this video because this guy's speaking too fast. But I can't hear this thing talk about, but I did this and I did this. No, I can't. Sorry, guys.
instructions for the mental training exercise. Lie down or sit in a comfortable chair and imagine that your body is made up of balloons. There are 2 valves in your feet. They open and the air escapes from your legs. Your legs collapse until they are empty and lay there against the bed. A valve now opens in your chest, and your whole body collapses limply against the bed or the chair. Continue this with your arms, neck, and shoulders and head. As the air escapes, envision your worries fizzing away into the ether with it. As the last of the air is leaving, say to yourself over and over again, at least 7 times, calm body, calm mind. As you do this exercise day after day, you'll find the time it takes to start feeling physical relaxation shortens. After using this technique for 3 weeks or so, you'll find that just silently repeating the command will create an instantaneous lessening of tension, physically and mentally. You are setting up the ability to instantly relax on command, anywhere, anytime.
Oh wow.
You can use your PsychoCybernetics Q
This guy's fucking using NLP, man. Nice. Is there something called anchor points? So what he's basically doing is he's staying calm body, calm mind, and the technique goes like you sleep in your bed or something, relax, and the way you relax is take a part of your body, let's say your hands, and imagine your hand was a balloon. Imagine all the air going out of the balloon. Relax. Imagine all the air going out from your legs. Relax. Imagine all your air going out from your chest. Relax. And then while doing this entire thing, you're saying calm body, calm mind, and it's saying in the period of 3 weeks, just by repeating calm body, calm mind, it'll. Why did I ever think of creating an anchor of the relaxed point? Interesting. Stupid. I don't know why I didn't do that.
card to easily remember to use this particular technique. The other exercise, step in, step out, is a bit more complicated to learn, but can be very powerful. You first call up an unpleasant memory, or if one comes up on its own and you can't shake it, take it into the theater of your mind and put it up on the screen. Sit there to watch it, but make the screen as far away as possible, getting smaller, then staying small. Tell yourself to watch this movie objectively, to evaluate it, not to re-experience it. Try replaying it with a faceless actor in your place. Ask questions like, are you smarter, more mature, or otherwise different now than when this movie was made? How would you advise the fellow you replaced yourself with to change?
So it's telling to another way to relax is take the movie that is playing in your head and kind of like disassociate. Take the movie that you're playing in your head and disassociate. Imagine the actor has like a blank face and then think objectively. That's all he said till now.
Ensure he didn't relive the movie repeatedly. This is the step out part. You take yourself out of the situation and look at it coolly as an analyst. Next, call up a pleasant memory of a comparable situation. Step into it and enjoy the experience fully. As a result of using this mental training exercise repeatedly, you'll soon be able to step out and step in to actual stressful or challenging situations in just minutes whenever you need to. Let's say you leave a very difficult and frustrating business meeting, but have to go right into your next meeting. You can give your subconscious the step in, step out command, and in fewer than 5 minutes, go through a step out of the last meeting, reducing its emotional impact and storing it in a film can on the shelf for later analysis.
Okay, good. Almost right technique. Step in, step out. Step in, step out is like take your situation, put it on a big screen, put it very far out. The step out part. Watch this objectively, then basically be inside the thing. Step in. Okay, cool.
And run a mental movie of a much more successful meeting. Step in, experience its feeling for a moment, and move on to your second meeting, able to focus on it instead of what just happened. One of my speaking colleagues, Joel Weldon, has a talk titled Jet Pilots Don't Use Rear View Mirrors. Step in, step out can make sure you aren't looking in the rear view mirror for more than a minute or two. Phil Jackson, head coach of the Chicago Bulls, uses what he calls a quickie visualization to help his players cool down mentally as well as physically during a break in the game, so they go back onto the court in a relaxed, confident state. Phil explains it this way. During the 15 or 30 seconds they have to grab a drink and towel off, I encourage them to picture themselves someplace where they feel secure. It's a way for them to take a short mental vacation before addressing the problem at hand. Simple as it may seem, the exercise helps players reduce their anxiety and focus their attention on what they need to do when they return to the court. If it's good enough for Michael Jordan, it's good enough for me. These strategic relaxation techniques allow you to relax on demand. It is also important to be able to relax in general, to diffuse stress accumulated during the day. For that purpose, Dr. Maltz recommended a number of do-it-yourself tranquilizers. His list has been expanded and improved over the years by a number of co-authors. Here are 8 of the best drug-free, cost-free tranquilizers and mind relaxants. You can use your PsychoCybernetics key point reminder card to quickly and conveniently recall and use this important information. Number 1, 15 minutes a day in your mental foxhole. Dr. Maltz was impressed with President Truman's description of retreating into a foxhole inside his own mind to relax and think.
What? Fractal.
Best drug-free, cost-free tranquilizers and mind relaxants. You can use your PsychoCybernetics key point reminder card to quickly and conveniently recall and use this important information. Number 1, 15 minutes a day in your mental foxhole. Dr. Maltz was impressed with President Truman's description
What? Mental what?
of retreating into a foxhole inside his own mind to relax and think.
What? Foxhole.
Of the best drug-free, cost-free tranquilizers and mind relaxants.
Okay.
You can use your PsychoCybernetics key point reminder card to quickly and conveniently recall and use this important information.
It's a plugin, but okay. Got you.
Number 1, 15 minutes a day in your mental foxhole.
What? Foxhole.
Dr. Maltz was impressed with President Truman's description of retreating into a foxhole inside his own mind to relax and think. Just about everybody who carries a lot of responsibility has some variation of the foxhole in the mind to retreat to mentally regroup. Of course, there's no reason.
Let's say like a man cave, I guess. What the fuck? Foxhole. Nanio. It is insult. A prince like me doesn't go to foxholes. Only castles and lonely mountains. Mountains, yeah.
It has to be as stark as a foxhole, and every reason it shouldn't. Create a retreat in your mind that suits your own preferences. If you find the ocean soothing and refreshing, and like a tropical climate, go ahead and gift yourself with your very own island, complete with your own beautifully furnished beach house, where you can stretch out on a lounge chair, close your eyes, listen to the tide, the soft whir of the overhead ceiling fan, the occasional call of the seagull. If a mountain cabin with a rocking chair on a porch next to a babbling brook is more your liking, by all means give that to yourself. It doesn't cost a dime to do either one in your imagination. Get this retreat built and envisioned in minute detail so you can go there instantly. Once there, turn off the thoughts of the day, tune into the peaceful environment around you, and enjoy the tranquility and privacy. You may want to combine this with a simple, deep breathing exercise like this one. Number 1, get in a comfortable place to sit in a quiet place. Number 2, go to your retreat in your mind and settle in. Number 3, breathe deeply, slowly through your nose. Number 4, with each breath you take and briefly hold, concentrate on the sound and sensations of your own breathing. Tune into the life-giving, energizing breath. This helps tune out left brain thoughts. Number 5, after 5 to 10 minutes, take one last deep breath, then breathe normally the remainder of your time in your retreat. By the way, a large number of contemporary stress management and personal development experts endorse and personally use this exact technique. Jordan Ian, the author of the book 10 Ways to Free Your Creative Spirit and Find Your Great Ideas, says, I like to visualize a room by the ocean. I know how the room looks inside and what kind of music is playing there, what the veranda is like. I have everything I need to be creative there, and that helps me come up with new ideas. Jim Lair, the CEO of LGE Sports Science, a training company in Orlando, Florida, has been a peak performance coach to Olympic and pro athletes, elite military units, and corporate leaders worldwide. His partner, Dr. Jack Groppel, is often a speaker on the Peter International day-long success events that I speak at in many cities. I think Jim and Jack are providing some of the best information available today on transferring peak performance techniques from the world of athletic competition to the business world. Jim worked extensively with Olympic skier Dan Jansen during his slump, recovery, and peak accomplishments. Jim says that one of the most powerful tools he gave Dan was an imaginary war room, a place in Dan's own mind that he visited before every race. Dan equipped the room with everything that made him feel happy, positive, confident, and relaxed, including images of his wife and tiny baby, trophies from important races, and inspiring music. Dr. Deborah Bright, author of the book Creative Relaxation and a former Olympic swimmer herself, describes a version of the same strategy as PQT, personal quiet time. Many people who perform in stressful environments all day long find value in giving themselves a brief PQT session at the very end of the day before walking through the door at home to be with their families. Number 2, a mentor to model, a mentor to talk to. One of our foundation directors, Matt Oxley, teaches sales professionals to choose role models and heroes, identify their most useful virtues, and model them. Matt points out that basketball superstar Michael Jordan modeled his game after 2 local basketball heroes you may never have heard of, David Thompson and Walter Davis. General George Patton was fascinated by Alexander the Great. In the heat of battle against the Nazis in Europe, he made all of his decisions after asking himself how Alexander the Great reacted in similar circumstances. Your role models or heroes can be used to build confidence for your own decisions, and the role model doesn't have to be perfect. Michael Jordan didn't realize his local basketball heroes both had serious drug problems. Alexander the Great had plenty of character flaws. Let's say Benjamin Franklin is a hero. If so, it may be because of his inventiveness, industriousness, or simple practical wisdom. If you study his life, read his works, and focus on these attributes, you'll soon have a picture of Franklin stored in your imagination. You can look to that Franklin for inspiration or even interact with it. Much was made of Hillary Clinton's carrying on conversations with her idol, Eleanor Roosevelt, partly because there was a third party, some kind of new age channeling guru involved. But having conversations with deceased mentors actually has a long and storied tradition. If you've read all the works of Think and Grow Rich author Napoleon Hill, you know that he had a whole group of successful industrialists and philosophers that he consulted with from time to time via vividly imagined conversations. The question, what would he do in this situation, is often asked by military, political, and business leaders, each contemplating what someone
Take a political figure or take a guy that you admire and think, what would this guy do in this situation? I got you, man. It's good.
they admire, living or dead, might make of their current idea or problem. In reading Dr. Maltz's books, like the original PsychoCybernetics, The Magic Power of Self,
I think understanding how does this person perceive the situation, I think is more useful than thinking what this person would do in the situation. But hey,
image, and even the new zero-resistance selling, many people feel like they are actually carrying on a conversation with Max. All of the books feature transcripts of conversations he had with patients and clients, so it becomes easy to put together a similar conversation in the imagination. I've done it myself. The ability to have a mental conversation with a mentor you admire can have a very calming effect in times of crisis, help you calmly think through problems, and stimulate your self-image to send the servo mechanism looking for good answers instead of sitting paralyzed with worry and stress. Number 3, focus on one task at a time. Your servo mechanism is single task oriented, so it's best to focus on one thing at a time. That fellow at his desk, talking on the phone, sorting mail, and trying to wolf down a sandwich all at the same time may give himself the illusion of temporary super productivity, but he'll quickly find himself all bound up with stress and probably indigestion. So over the rest of the day, his performance will suffer enormously. Even a computer that can do millions of calculations per second still cannot execute 2 programs simultaneously. Number 4, give yourself a physical break. If you are desk-bound, office-bound, car-bound, or otherwise physically confined, stress has the opportunity of building up in targeted areas of the body. Some people accumulate at the base of the neck, others in the low back, others in their eyes and forehead.
Yeah.
A quick walk, a brief break outside the office in fresh air, the car pulled over to a roadside shade tree so you can stand and stretch. These are simple stress busters we don't do often enough. You might want to combine this with simple stretching exercises. Another type of physical break is a nap. For years, people, especially men, resisted the very idea of a daytime nap. It felt like an admission of weakness or
the problem with the last 2 points that he said is, one is that let's say you're having physical symptoms, stretching, taking a walk, good, but if you want to do it comfort of your home, without like moving, if you're lazy like me, there are other techniques to do the breathing thing. The third one is taking a nap. The problem is I never can take a nap. If I sleep for like hours, and that messes up my entire sleeping schedule. So
advancing age. But there is a growing body of research to indicate that brief
Very
midday naps have
interesting,
re-energizing value far in excess of their minutes. Thomas Edison used to take short naps when stumped by a problem, and time and again, his servo mechanism provided the answers he needed after a period of rest.
okay.
Edison said that all of his discoveries came out of his subconscious after a period of relaxation following a period of fact-gathering and intensive thinking. I often use Edison's approach for everything from problem-solving to coming up with new advertising ideas for my clients. Number 5, laughter as medicine. Dr. Maltz personally had a great sense of humor, and throughout his works tells stories on himself of his foolish mistakes and embarrassing situations. As a medical man, he would be delighted with all the evidence accumulating today that humor really is medicine. I know one Harry executive who has a TV and a VCR in his office, along with a little collection of videotapes of the Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, several Seinfeld episodes, and old MASH episodes. When he feels himself getting tense, he gives himself a 10-minute humor break.
Okay, laughter as a medicine. Okay, good, gotcha.
Number 6, nip dread in the bud. If you catch yourself dreading the upcoming day, hour, meeting, phone call, or other activity, stop.
So, yeah, this skill needs mindfulness. So he's saying as soon as you watch it arise, boom, do all the techniques like whatever he's saying.
Right there and have a conversation with yourself. Dr. Maltz wondered if the TGIF, Thank God It's Friday slogan was going to be destructive for our entire society. As he said, it begged the idea of, oh no, it's Monday. Looking toward any upcoming task or event with dread obviously manufactures stress and destroys relaxation. Given such situations, we ought to either delegate it, divorce ourselves from it, or find a way to reposition it as something to be tackled with enthusiasm. Number 7, immunize yourself against stress with exercise. There's abundant evidence that even small amounts of regular exercise, like walking, can pay big dividends in disease prevention, longevity, physical fitness, and mental fitness. Most Americans eat too much, exercise too little. Even given the plethora of exercise gadgets advertised everywhere, the explosion of fat-free foods, the ready access to nutritional information, as a nation, we're more obese now than we were 5 years ago. You really can't exercise away stress. The right kinds of exercise cause the body to release endorphins, which are natural painkillers and mood enhancers. Number 8, perspective versus drama. It is said that children have much more drama than perspective in their
I
lives.
like that.
A teenager facing an acne outbreak says, I'll never go out in public again.
that.
When a teenage girl is dumped by her first boyfriend, she'll insist she's through with men forever. But adults often put drama ahead of perspective too. Drama is the short-term experience. Perspective is the long-term vision. A great many of our life events take on magnifying importance at the moment, but over time, if so little significance, we can't even remember them. A daily perspective restoration exercise can be very healthy and helpful. One such exercise is simply taking 5, 10, or 15 minutes to revisit the big picture of your goals. Chicago Bulls coach Phil Jackson describes it this way. During the heat of the season, it's easy to get wound up so tight that you strangle your own creativity. Visualization is the bridge I use to link the grand vision of the team I conjure up every summer to the evolving reality on the court. That vision becomes a working sketch that I adjust as the season develops. Another exercise is end-of-day gratitude. The idea here is simply to take a few minutes at the end of each and every day to mentally list the people and events of the day you can be thankful to and for. Gratitude is a healing, relaxing emotion. As you can see, a lot of these strategies had to do with taking breaks. Harvard Medical School researcher Raymond Flammary discovered that what he calls escape time is a critical shared factor in the success of individuals who prove significantly resistant to stress. In his studies, physical illness and levels of emotional distress were lowest in those who regularly took relaxation breaks lasting as long as 15 minutes. These breaks often included listening to music, exercising, meditating, playing games, or going for a walk. Sports psychologists James Lehrer and Jack Rappel call this process of alternating stress and recovery time oscillation. Oscillation is long ability to physical exercise regimens. Periods of stress, such as intense aerobic exercise, sprints, a rock wall climb, followed by periods of low stress activity, like walking, followed by another burst of high pressure activity. Now there are exercise devices with built-in oscillation. Putting mental oscillation into the schedule of what Lehrer and Rappel call corporate athletes can dramatically enhance overall performance.
Wait, guys, that was interesting. Let me write that down. So it's talking about oscillation, where you're going between low intense exercise and a high intense exercise. Interesting. So to relax your body, he's talking something called like oscillation, where you go from low intensity to high intensity. So if I did something like take deep 10 breaths and did 10 push-ups, and then deep 10 breaths and then did 10 push-ups, would it theoretically make my body relaxed? I know it does work because the breathing technique that I do use is almost like I start with like a slow breathing, which is like low intense, and then I go for like a more intense breathing technique, and then I switch back to like a lower intense breathing technique, and that works spectacularly. But I actually never connected the dots saying that the oscillation is the one that is actually creating the thingy. So, GG, good job, good point.
This is one of the hottest new concepts in performance improvement, yet it too dates back to Dr. Maltz's prescriptions of the 1960s. Even before having it described to me as oscillation, I picked up on the pattern in all of Dr. Maltz's advice about relaxation, the need for breaks from stressful activities. I found, for example, that I can deliver a much more effective speech if I block the hour or so beforehand from other work. During that time, I try not to make or take phone calls, have meetings, or do other work. If I'm in my hotel room, I may find something entertaining to watch on TV. If I'm backstage, I'll find a quiet place and close my eyes, relax my body, and rest. When I work in my home city in Phoenix, I try to avoid having business meetings at lunch. I prefer eating lunch alone, often reading the daily newspaper's comic strip or a magazine about my hobby, only resources. I use this as decompression time, what Dr. Flammary calls escape time.
Okay.
Some people find that using the lunch hour for exercise or recreation instead of eating works well for them. In big cities, computer-simulated golf courses are springing up where you can go, swing a real club, hit a real ball, but not move, and have the virtual experience of playing a complete round of golf. This is an improvement over just hitting a bucket of balls at the driving range, although the exercise is about the same. Hitting the gym at lunch may prove to be a good choice for you. Other people prefer hitting the gym at the very end of the day to unload stress before going home for the evening, and this is definitely a much better choice than the so-called happy hour. You should experiment with these different ideas and techniques to come up with an oscillation pattern that works best for you. And as Jim Lehrer tells his clients, stress is never the real enemy. The ultimate impact of stress on your life is not determined by endless traffic jams or job loss, failed merger, incompetent employees, but by your own emotional response to events. You may want to choose several different options to break up your day and incorporate the idea of oscillation. I would urge you to give whatever techniques you choose at least a 21-day trial before deciding to continue with them or to try others. You need that much time before evaluating the impact. Please refer to your guidebook for more in-depth information and mental training exercises in this area of the new PsychoCybernetics. Now here are some of Dr. Maltz's comments about relaxation.
A few years ago, I spoke in Atlanta, Georgia, to members of a sales and marketing organization and their wives. There was a boy of 14, his name was Ray, and he was to blow a horn, a bugle, I think, and play Yankee Doodle Dandy in honor of most who had come from New York. He raised the instrument to his mouth on cue, but he couldn't blow the horn. He just couldn't communicate. He shook his head in bewilderment. I watched him. I knew he must have practiced this song for weeks, that he wouldn't dare to come into a room full of 800 adults and try to play the song without some rehearsal. He removed the mouthpiece, put another in, and still no luck. He couldn't deliver. He couldn't blow his horn. He went to the rear of the room and sat down at a table and didn't see the slice of apple pie and cheese and the glass of milk that was there for him. He was completely forlorn, utterly alone, in the room of 800 people. I got up and spoke. I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of my talk is Ray who couldn't blow his horn." I went on to say that there are many Rays and Rayettes in our midst who, because of some fear, anxiety, or frustration, cannot communicate, cannot deliver, cannot blow their horns. You can undermine yourself with critical truths about yourself that even your own worst enemy couldn't possibly dream up. You base your feelings of inferiority on evidence that any fair-minded jury would reject. Your truth about yourself is not truth at all. It's often just a prejudiced case that you are conducting against yourself, a case more unkind than you would level against any of your acquaintances. You give yourself as much justice as would a lynch mob. When we feel inferior, it's because we measure ourselves against somebody else. We convince ourselves of the entirely ridiculous idea that we should be like somebody else or even everybody else. That is a false conception. The everybody else is made up of individuals too. They're just like fingerprints. No two of them are the same. You base your feelings of inferiority on as far as Arnold Palmer. Does that make me feel inferior? In golf, I am inferior to Arnold Palmer. Fine. But it doesn't make me feel the least inferior. Every day I meet people, bookkeepers, salesmen, corporation presidents. They are all superior to me in some area. So what? These people cannot improve a scarred face. And there are other things I can do better than they can. And they have no reason to feel inferior to me for these reasons. Yet many people believe that they're so inferior that they simply cannot live with themselves. To make life tolerable, they strive to be superior. It's a false lead. Superiority and inferiority are just two sides of the same coin. The cure is to realize that the coin is simply counterfeit. The simple truth is that you're neither inferior nor superior to your fellow human beings. Okay. You are you, that's all. That's the whole story. You are unique. Rejoice in that. You
Okay.
must realize that you're not required to be right 100% of the time. It is the nature of things that we progress by acting, by making mistakes, and by correcting our course of action. You cannot correct your course by standing still. By using your imagination creatively, you live in the present today, determined to have one thought at a time, one goal at a time, seeking goals within your capabilities. You practice without pressure, without tension, relaxed as you go for your goal, concentrating on it, keeping your eye on the ball, imagining you're reaching your goal, refusing to let fear sidetrack you. There is within each one of us a life instinct which is forever working toward health, happiness, and all that makes for more life for the individual. This life instinct works for you through what I call the creative mechanism, or when used correctly, the success mechanism built into each human being. We succeed by using our assets within us to reach productive goals, our assets of understanding, compassion, self-respect, and self-acceptance. We always talk about the wonders of modern science as preparing us for the future, but one aspect of science we often forget about is the knowledge of the past, archaeology. Just think of some of the fascinating discoveries that have recently been made about ancient Greece. Dr. John Papadimitriou was digging near a village in Greece and uncovered 15 wooden vases carved in geometrical designs. It was the first such find in history. The vases had been preserved in mud since the 5th and 6th centuries BC. Or take the example of Professor John L. Kasky from the University of Cincinnati. He found a Mycenaean settlement that dates back some 3,500 years. He found a temple, palace, private homes with inside plumbing, and a municipal sewer system 3,500 years ago.
Okay.
From time to time, we learn of new excavations that bring old civilizations to light. Archaeology helps us understand our origins. It gives us an appreciation of other societies and more insight into our own. But you should be an archaeologist too. And you don't need an axe or a shovel, or any instrument for that matter. All you need is 5 minutes when you can rest after your day's work. Use these 5 minutes to concentrate on yourself, to try to find those hidden treasures that you've forgotten about for ages. Dig down through the debris of failure, and you will find hidden treasures that are more important to you than those found in some bygone civilization. These treasures are your self-respect, sincerity, understanding, your self-confidence, and your courage. They will help you reach your daily goal. They will give you the proper self-image and bring success to your undertakings. How do you appraise yourself? It's remarkable that we're at least objective in appraising ourselves. Masterly in our understanding of others, we may still be irrational in understanding ourselves.
Yeah.
From what I've read, even the great Sigmund Freud, whose creative and courageous work has had such impact on our thinking, could not completely fathom the mysteries of his own mind. And so it goes with others. The physicist, master of technical concepts, may have a distorted, untruthful view of himself. The judge, who dedicates his life to justice and truth, may know little truth about himself. Now, what is your truth about yourself? Do you feel inferior because you never made as much money as someone else? Or do you destroy yourself with other so-called truths? Too many people see only negation when they think they see truths about themselves. They block off joy because they're so critical of themselves that truths are distortions. Stop shortchanging yourself and dehypnotize yourself from your ridiculous attacks on yourself. Try to be objective. Give yourself some justice for a change. Then you may be able to move forward into a more creative life.
Okay.
Life is short. The individual who wastes it worrying throws away this precious gift that God gives him. Practice forgiveness. For forgiveness soothes the feelings and brings peace of mind.
Forgiveness
Forgive because no one is perfect. When you
Wow, okay, damn, this guy. That was actually. We're ending on a beautiful note. So someone. It's Anessa's birthday. Ah, it's live now. Whatever. What is it? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Then. That one note. तो क्या इसका note हुआ? Relax. Of course, relax. Possible. Oh, go. Cancel. Go.
hold a grudge against someone for years, you may be blaming him for an inconsiderate act that you, in your own imperfection, might have committed. Accept others with their human faults and relax with yourself, fallible as you are. Relax with your failures and aim for achievement of worthwhile goals. Forgive yourself. See yourself at your best.
I think we'll stop here. It's interesting. I started with 2 and I went to 4. So, wait. So, I spent like what? 40. Oh, let me do the quick math. So, it's like what? 36, 32, 41. So, how much time did we exactly save? 5, 6, 6, 10 is 106 by 6. So it's 106 minutes. So we exactly spent 60 minutes. So we totally like saved 46 minutes. So what would normally take me 1 hour 46 minutes took me 1 hour. That's like 2x. Oh wait, that's the actual speed. I'm so stupid. But I've just 2x it. Anyway, I think this is enough for today. The key points, I guess, let me. Oh, damn, it's too big. Okay, just give me 1 second. Better do this. Yes. Okay. The key point. I have some notes. So I have, guys. You see, I've written notes. Um, right. First, he talks about the self-image and understanding what your self-image exactly is, and then you have problem with the self-image. Second, he talks about using your imagination to create a different kinds of to create a new kind of self-image. For example, he calls about mental rehearsal and mental movies. Mental rehearsal is when you're rehearsing by doing something, and mental movies is when you're like seeing something. And there are 10 ways that he talks about stimulating imagination. One is varied input, taking your time to exercise your imagination. Block out distractions, relax as much as possible, being the fourth one. Fifth one being a detail oriented. Sixth one, imagine yourself in present tense and perfectly. Seven is resist left brain activities. Eight is replay past successes. Ninth is do both mental movies and mental rehearsals. Mental movies being seeing the thingy, and doing is mental rehearsals, right? And 10 is like be prepared to capture the creative messages that just come through you. Real imagination versus imagined imagination, I guess that was interesting. How to break the illusion of the illusion would be interesting to see. Then he talks about the critic within. I think that's the next chapter, right? To stabilize self confidence, he says you have to work with self image. And to create true self confidence, there are four different facets that you have to work on. One is to silence the critic, two is superior knowledge, three is the ability to relax, four is superior skill. And things to do to improve your self confidence, he says. One is to refocus on a daily plan every day. It's too much planning. Two, establish a self monitoring system, which is super important. Three is to secure the support of others. Four is to reward yourself with small things. Five is about burnouts by taking break. I take nice breaks. And then he talks about the next chapter, which is strategic relaxation, as to how to relax your body. He talks about two techniques. One is like step in, step out. Other is like calm body, calm mind. Step in, step out is basically you have a big screen. You're watching the mental movie that's happening almost like an observer. You're watching it almost like an observer, right? And then you're stepping in, and then you're like feeling through the emotions and the sensations that's going through. And calm body, calm mind is basically when you're sleeping in the floor. I mean, not in the floor, on the bed. Imagine your hands are balloons. Imagine your hands are balloons, okay? And imagine the air being deflated. It deflated from your chest, deflated from your legs. You're being relaxed. And then keep saying calm body, calm mind. And he says within a period of 3 weeks, you should be able to just say calm body, calm mind, which is like an anchor, and then watch your body relax. Next thing we're going to do, I think the most important and the most interesting is the oscillation pattern. And the oscillation pattern is basically having low intense relaxation techniques coupled with high intense relaxation techniques, then coupled with low intense relaxation techniques, coupled with high intense relaxation techniques. So which is interesting. I've not tried that. And that's about it. So we did chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. Chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. And let me think about integrating this, and then probably I would read the further chapters. I could binge this entire book today, but I think it's good enough for now. Uh, Let me know if you guys have comments below or something like that. Also, I did read the comments. It's like a very fast rap without any rhythm. Yeah, but less boring. I'll see you guys in the next episode or video, whatever.